I gave my brother a kidney, but his terrifying secret left me haunted forever. I never should have opened that door. It was a Friday evening, just another day. I sat in my living room, the soft glow of my lamp barely piercing the thick darkness. The chill in the air seeped through the walls, making me shiver. My brother, Max, had been recovering from the transplant, his once vibrant spirit now a frail echo. But that wasn't the worst part. Something didn't feel right. Whispers seemed to drift through the cracks of the house. I convinced myself it was the wind. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, flickering beneath the doorframe. And then I heard a thump. My heart raced. I glanced at the door leading to the basement. That door. The one my mom warned us never to open. The basement was filled with Max's old stuff. But sometimes, he had talked about it, strange things he found there. Things that should never be disturbed. The air was heavy, smelling like damp earth and something metallic, almost coppery. I felt it rising from the floorboards, wrapping around me like a cold, suffocating blanket. I dared to move, driven by an insatiable curiosity. As I approached the door, the whispers grew louder, almost pleading, pushing me back. Suddenly, the house creaked eerily. I could sense something watching me, lurking in the darkness beyond that door. And then it happened. A noise from below, a loud crash like something heavy fell. My pulse roared in my ears. What was down there? I reached for the knob, my fingers icy against the metal. Before I could turn it, the lights flickered and went out, plunging me into complete darkness. My breath hitched in my throat. I heard another thump, closer this time. The sound was dragging, slow, like something heavy clawing its way up the stairs. There was no escaping it. I gripped the door frame tightly, my palms slick with sweat. The whispers turned into desperate murmurs. They wanted me to listen, to understand. Just as I was about to pull away, the doorknob rattled. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I froze, staring into the now impenetrable blackness of the basement. A figure began to emerge, its outline growing sharper against the minimal light from my lamp. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, but my voice was trapped deep inside me. And then it spoke. A raspy voice, echoing like gravel scraping against metal. Help me, hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The voice lingered in the stillness, a chilling caress that slithered beneath my skin. I was paralyzed, caught between the instinct to flee and the compulsion to understand. Help me, it whispered again, pooling with a sorrow so profound that it gnawed at the edges of my reason. Who was down there? Was it Max? The figure solidified, a tattered warmth fighting against the suffocating coldness of the open basement door. Shadows twisted around it like mournful specters, and then I saw too late that it bore the features of my brother, but distorted, grotesque. His face was pale, sunken, haunted by eyes that were not his own, dark, soulless pits that drank in the light like a moonless night. Help me, it reached a hand out, claw-like and trembling, as though it were being pulled back by invisible threads. Panic rushed through me, a tempest of emotions swirling violently. This was not the brother I knew, this was a horror wearing his skin. That I stumbled backward, the back of my legs hitting the couch, and I nearly fell. Max? Is that you? My voice came out as a whisper, trembling with dread. I was desperate to believe, yet instinct told me danger lurked in that distorted visage. Let me out, it rasped, the anguish palpable as it struggled against whatever bound it to the darkness below. They won't stop. Who? Who won't stop? I pressed, fear coursing through my veins, igniting my senses. The shadows coalesced around the creature, flickering, warping, as if they were alive, responding to its torment. Severus, it gasped, the name spilling from those crooked lips like an ancient curse. He took me, and now, he will take you too. With those words, an air of surreal despair settled over me. A sensation akin to ice slowly wrapped around my heart as I struggled to comprehend. Was this some twisted hallucination? A delusion born from Max's fragile state? Or was it the truth? Suddenly, the whispers escalated, merging, drowning out every thought. I could hear the words now, phrases tumbling into one another, each laced with agony. "He's coming, he's here, you have to listen." The last plea pierced the air, but it was accompanied by a monstrous crash from the basement, knocking several items from a nearby shelf. Someone was trying to breach the surface, and with it came a rancid smell, like decay and despair. That I stumbled back, my instinct screaming at me to escape. With a wild turn, I raced down the hallway toward the front door. The cries echoed behind me, pleading and desperate, but they were swiftly overtaken by another sound: scraping, crawling, shifting. Whatever had tormented Max was now tormenting me. Just as I reached for the door, I felt a blast of icy air that sent a jolt through my body. The air thickened around me, pressing against my chest, making each breath a laborious task. That voice, guttural and pleading, shattered through the floorboards beneath me. "You can't leave." I froze, dread rendering me immobile as shadows swarmed to envelop my feet like thick tar. Panic surged. I had to fight against it. I pulled, yanking my foot away, feeling something pulsing below the surface as I tore free. In a final act of desperation, I spun around to face the basement again, the light from my lamp barely cutting through the suffocating darkness. I raised my voice above the unbearable whispers. "Max! I'm going to find you." No sooner had the words left my lips than the shadows erupted in a cacophony of rage, swirling violently, transforming into an entity that coalesced into a horrifying figure, tall, grotesque, with elongated limbs and eyes glistening with malice. "Foolish child," it hissed, a voice that resonated both within my mind and in the space around me, heavy with ancient malice. "You've awakened what should have remained buried." As the figure lunged toward me, time slowed. The door behind me not budging, shadows closing all around, I screamed. But the sound was swallowed whole, leaving only darkness in its wake. In that moment of crushing despair, a blinding light flared from the direction of the basement, illuminating everything in a fierce glow, revealing secrets I dared not contemplate. I had stumbled too far and learned too much, and now there would be no turning back. Every breath became a struggle as I floated in the blinding light. It twisted and shifted, revealing fleeting images of a world I couldn't comprehend, shadowy figures with indistinct faces, the frantic whispers of voices devoid of coherence, and the grotesque image of my brother, or what remained of him, trapped behind a veil of sorrow and dread. The light descended upon me, a relentless luminescence that seemed desperate to consume rather than protect. My hands lifted involuntarily, shielding my face as I felt the warmth creep away, replaced instead by a chilling cold that caressed my skin like a deathly grip. The shadowed figure in front of me flickered, melding into the brightness with malevolent ease, as if it were feeding upon my fear. "Look what you have stirred," it crooned, its elongated fingers curling into claws before splaying wide, causing the air around it to shiver. "Severus is not the worst of your nightmares. No, in time, you will wish for his return." A sound like shattered glass rushed through the light, obscuring everything, and I backed away instinctively, stumbling into a wall that felt rubbery beneath my palms. The very structure of my home had begun to warp, as if the heart of the house itself was caught in the throes of something profoundly wrong. The walls pulsed, seemingly alive with every falter of my heartbeat. "We're all tied together now, you and I," the creature whispered, its voice a sibilant hiss, merging with a chorus of anguished wails that seemed to echo from somewhere deep within the bowels of the earth. "Max, where is he?" The words slipped from my lips before I could stop them, embodying the desperate hope I fought to attach myself to as everything around me began to spiral, still crying for your brother," it mocked, its laughter echoing like a distant thunderstorm. "But blood is thicker than water. You've given him your most precious gift and in return, he's given you this." Suddenly, the ground started to tremble beneath my feet, and I collapsed to the floor as images flashed before my mind like the snapshots of a deteriorating film reel. Max's laughter from our childhood, sweet and innocent. The harrowing moments of his illness, and the fateful day I lay upon that operating table, tethered by my love and desperation. But beneath those memories lurked darker truths. Flickers of shadowy figures hovering in the periphery of my brother's room, whispers that promised him freedom and power if only he let go of his humanity. I had thought the absence of a mere organ was the only price to pay. I had not imagined what he might have traded for his wretched existence. With a surge of will, I closed my eyes tightly, focusing on that night, the sterile smells of the hospital, the sound of the surgeon's voice echoing in my mind. "It'll be all right, Max." But would it, really? The trembling ceased momentarily, and the blinding light began to dim, allowing me to see glimpses of reality amidst the tangled shadows. I caught sight of my brother's face then, not the grotesque nightmare from before, but the soft features I remembered, masked by fear and something primordial that had never existed in our lifetime. It stood behind a warped glass pane that fogged with suffocating malice, pleading yet marred by darkness. "I am sorry," he mouthed, whether at me or maybe even for himself, I couldn't tell. The glow flickered again, casting everything in garish hues of emotion, drawing ire from Severus, who seemed to swell with rage. "You dare seek his forgiveness?" It spat, tendrils of shadow unfurling across the room, snaking toward my legs and wrapping around like a serpent tightening its grip. "You are the parasite, and he is the host." Yanking at my feet in blind panic, I struggled against the choking shadows threatening to pull me into their void. With one desperate cry, I called out, "Max, don't let it take you." But the space around me split open with an agonizing sound, a rift curling into existence that flooded the air with a horrific wind. I turned instinctively toward that sound, senses igniting as if drawn to the unfathomable chasm before me. "Join us or lose him forever," Severus taunted, the shadow surrounding me amplifying its grotesque form as if unwilling to be ignored. I hesitated, suspended between two worlds, the flickering memories of my brother and the suffocating horror promising salvation through sacrifice. And just then, the darkness surged forward, forcing my body toward the abyss. The last thing I saw was Max's face, twisted into horror, as screams from every shadow echoed around us. "Help me!" And then silence swallowed the light whole, leaving only the horrific promise of what lay ahead as I was dragged into the ever-waiting darkness, unsure if the tether of blood would be strong enough to overcome the horrors beneath. As I was pulled into the darkness, the sensation was both liberating and suffocating. My heart pounded in my chest as if trying to escape the corporeal confines of my body, a frantic drumbeat that thrummed against the crushing void. I gasped, but the breath was swiftly stolen away, replaced by a coldness that slithered through my being, freezing me from the inside out. In the pitch black, I tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the terrible silence, a quiet so profound it gnawed at my sanity. Yet, even deeper within the quiet, something stirred. Murmurs, slithering whispers that slid through my mind like wispy tendrils, clawing at the edges of my consciousness. I couldn't make out the words, yet an overwhelming urgency filled them, a message that urged me to listen. Suddenly, my feet touched the ground, hard, uneven earth, dampened by an unseen moisture that clung to my skin and stung my senses. I blinked, momentarily disoriented, but when my eyes adjusted, the scenery tore itself apart with vivid clarity. A twisted, cavernous space enveloped me, illuminated not by light, but by a pulsating, sickly green glow that emanated from dripping stalactites high above. Sickening shapes crawled along the walls of the cavern, visages of anguish, their once human forms twisted into grotesque parodies of life. Their mouths opened in eternal screams, yet no sound escaped. Pure horror etched across their faces, they were remnants of souls trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. And at the center of it all, nestled among the wailing figures, was a dark swath of something I could only describe as a living shadow, a mass that seemed to pulse and contract, somehow aware and alive. "Welcome, dear sibling," it crooned, the shadows shifting to form a face I recognized all too well. It was Max, but not the Max I remembered. His eyes flickered like dying embers, smoldering with a forbidden knowledge that twisted my insides. "You were foolish to follow me. Now you see what you have unleashed." "Max!" I shouted, my voice trembling with desperation. The sobs of the damned filled my ears, dismissing my cries as they echoed throughout the cavern. "What have you become?" In response, his lips curled into a smile that chilled me to the core. "I have loosed the chains of the living. You have given me the ultimate sacrifice, a part of you, binding our fates eternally." The ground shuddered, and the shadowy creature surged forward, melding into the surrounding darkness and wrapping itself around my ankles like a chain. Panic surged again, and I struggled against it, but its grip was relentlessly cold, pulling me deeper into the pit of despair. "Come, see what awaits," the entity urged, the air thick with a malevolence that pressed against me, heavy and suffocating. As it pulled me close, visions flared into existence. Each soul trapped here bore my brother's mantle, their expressions twisted with betrayal and horror, reflecting the torment within me. They were all once lives connected through pain, brothers, mothers, lovers who had made their own sacrifices, believing themselves free, yet carrying the weight of their choices forever. Their pain was palpable, a tangible echo that enveloped my being, sending me spiraling downwards into the desolate ether. "Does it hurt?" I heard a child's voice among the shadows, a soft plea laced with dread. "He promised we'd be free. But freedom comes at a cost, and now we are lost." As I felt the ground shift beneath me, I gasped, trying to comprehend that flicker of hope mingling with despair. I realized, through their anguish, that they were all once like me, searching for redemption, seeking to protect their loved ones. "Max, no!" I cried, recognizing each anguished face as one I had strived to save. "We can break this cycle. The only way to break it," he crooned, "is to surrender fully, to join us in the shadows." My breath caught as he extended a claw-like hand toward me, his once gentle demeanor morphed into something else, something chthonic. I realized in a moment of clarity, I wasn't just trapped in his darkness, I was tethered to it. In my desperate acts, I had unwittingly opened the door wide to that ancient evil. Suddenly, a roar filled the cavern, an explosion of sound that sent the echoing cries rampaging into chaos. An unnerving laughter crescendoed, drowning out the pleas of the lost. The cavern itself began to quake as if alive, twisting reality in agony, and ripping memories from the depths of my mind. With horror spilling from my pores, I knew I had but moments to choose, to resist the malevolent call of Severus and risk losing everything, or yield to the darkness that promised power and safety. The shadows roared, pulling closer, threatening to consume me whole, but before I could decide, a distant, anguished scream shattered through the cacophony. My breath caught, and every fiber in my being screamed with recognition. "Help!" It echoed starkly in the silence, and the realization struck me like a lightning bolt. This wasn't a mercy call, it was a summons. A call from beyond the veil, a desperation I couldn't ignore, and in that instant, I knew I would have to confront the horror that lay within, not just my brother but also myself. The shadows writhed, eager to drag me into their waiting embrace, eager for my surrender. But before I could act, the ground beneath me shattered, splitting open into a gaping maw of darkness that threatened to swallow my very essence whole. In that split second, I felt an overwhelming surge of cold clarity wash over me, but it was too late to question what lay ahead. I took a stumbling step toward the void, torn between my love, my fear, and the inescapable truth that the roots of our darkness might just be entangled all along. Then, I was falling into the unknown, where screams faded but clarity lingered just out of reach. As what lay ahead obscured itself in the chaos, one thought pierced through the tumult: the price of our bond would feed the shadows hungry for despair, and I was the one thrust into the depths, bravely or foolishly, to find a way to save not just my brother, but perhaps us all. The world around me spun and dissolved, the green luminescence harsh against my eyes, piercing through the darkness as I fell deeper into the abyss. The coldness seeped through the spaces of my mind, erasing thoughts, memories, and identity. I grasped at fleeting images, laughter at the kitchen table, Max and I playing in the backyard, moments that felt like another life entirely. Then, just as quickly, they were gone, replaced by blackened remnants of despair. I landed with an sickening thud on damp ground, the air hissing around me like the death rattle of something beyond the mortal coil. My body ached, but the dread in my heart outweighed the pain. I blinked up at the vast expanse above, where shards of sharp darkness cut through the glimmering void. I stumbled to my feet, disoriented, dizzying whispers swirling like phantoms around me. "Welcome, welcome to the inverse," the shadows echoed, their voices a cacophony of forgotten hopes and malicious temptation. "Here, you shall see the truth of sacrifice." The ground shifted again, sending me reeling forward, my palms hitting the ground, slick and oozing with black ichor. The floor groaned beneath me, as if the realm itself were awakening, pulsating with anticipation. I could hear their thoughts, the fragmented pieces of lost souls colliding in a storm of agony. Every whisper coiling around me, taunting with half-formed words. "See, or all we have left, you must remember, it'll all come crashing down. No. I cried, shaking my head, fighting to claw my way back to coherence. "Max, I'm here. I'm available." There was no reply, only the thickening shadows that seemed to gather and swell around me, coiling ever closer like serpents sensing vulnerability. Then, from the darkness, a voice emerged. A child's voice, haunting and syrupy, yet edged with a deep sorrow. "You're here to join us. Do you not see? We waited for you." With trembling hands, I gripped the ground, steadying myself. I looked up to find a figure standing just out of reach of the grotesque illumination, a girl, no older than 8, her features obscured by shadow, but her eyes glinting like shards of broken glass. "Who are you?" I whispered, each word a shard of ice down my spine. She stepped forward, wisps of shadow clinging to her limbs like a tattered veil. "That I am just like you," she said, her voice a fragile whisper, lost among the cursed. "They will come for you, too, but I can help. We all can." Her smile was sweet but hollow, a ghastly mimicry of innocence. "Help?" My voice cracked under the weight of disbelief. You're trapped here. "You can't help me, but I can show you," she said, tilting her head as if considering a thought not meant for me. "The price is steep, only the bravest are willing to pay it, to see beyond the veil of illusion." As she spoke, the wailing souls in the background intensified, their torment merging into a symphony of despair that clawed at the edges of my mind. "What do you mean?" I pressed, desperate for clarity amid the chaos. Behind her, shadows writhed and twisted into hungry shapes, their insatiable hunger drawing nearer, an unwelcome embrace threatening to encircle me. "The choices you've made have linked you to us, to him." She gestured beyond the spectral ruins, her small hand pointing to a shadowy archway draped in darkness. "If you seek your brother, you must traverse the abyss of regret. Only there lies the path, Max." I shouted, but the moment I uttered his name, shadows surged forward, surrounding the girl and engulfing her in a shroud of despair. "No. Come back." I scrambled to my feet, the ichor slick beneath me, desperate for a response. She re-emerged, her visage flickering between solid and ethereal like a broken mirror of sorrow. "What you find beyond will change you. Embrace the truth, and you may survive." Suddenly, without warning, the ground trembled violently, a potent growl reverberating through the air, sending me sprawling backward. "You must hurry. They're coming for what you carry." As the shadows deepened, those alien forms surged forward, looming ominously, their grotesque versions of former selves. Twisted in hunger. I felt their icy fingers grazing my skin, chilling me to the bone. The pulse of the abyss demanded a choice, and it was not to be delayed. I could feel the weight of unspoken bonds, shackles tethering memories to this horrific realm, pulling me closer to the brink. Above the maelstrom, familiar screams emerged. No, not familiar, they were my own. Echoes of anguish as tendrils wrapped tighter around my limbs, desperate to pull me into a morass of oblivion amidst the calls of the lost. Unable to think, unable to outrun the desperate need to survive, and, yet, a choice was looming. With wide eyes and a feral scream, I lanced through the darkness, stumbling towards the archway she had pointed to, narrowly escaping being pulled down into their maw of despair. Howling rapture clawed at my back, but I pushed on, each step feeling heavier, as if despair itself clawed at my heels. Then, just as I approached the threshold of the archway, I felt a cold grip wrapped around my heart, squeezing and suffocating any remnants of hope. The wailing intensified, echoing through the skies, piercing through my resolve like sharp blades. "Join us!" The resounding cacophony enveloped me, drowning out even my own thoughts as I stood on the precipice of illumination and darkness. But it would be my decision, it always had been. The tendrils surged one last time, yanking me back and throwing me headlong into the dark void that howled beneath. Just as the shadowy abyss yawned wider, ready to consume me, another tortured scream pierced through, unmistakable and raw. "Help me!" The voice was unmistakably Max's, reverberating with suffocating weight that sent a shot of icy realization into my core. As I plummeted towards the void below, with truth and anguish colliding around me, a single thought ignited: I was tethered deeper than I ever imagined. And there was no escaping what I'd set into motion. Even if I dared to embrace the truth, there would be a cost, a terror I might not survive. I had to save him, but at what price? What fresh horrors awaited in the dark, hungry for my once innocent heart? I could feel the rush of the shadows as they pulled me down, dangling between the familiar call of my brother's voice and the gnarled tendrils reaching for my soul. I fought against the pull, kicking and screaming, desperate to find the ground beneath me, my palms slick with fear. "Max!" I cried out again, my voice shattering against the echoing void as though the abyss swallowed my very essence. My heart raced, its frantic thumping a beat of terror as I fell deeper into darkness. I grasped onto the last threads of sanity weaving between desperation and dread. I had given so much for Max, sacrificed parts of myself in ways that went beyond the tangible. I thought of how I had unknowingly unlocked this realm, committing an act of love that now twisted into something sinister. The moment I hit the damp ground again, I became acutely aware of the silence that followed. Everything around me loomed like a heavy fog, the dark pulsations of the shadows ebbing and flowing, waiting for the next moment to strike. I blinked hard, focusing on the space ahead, the treacherous archway still looming, although more grotesque now, the darkness coiling and shifting as though it had a heartbeat. "Max," I murmured, desperately hoping this ill-fated choice wouldn't seal his fate. I began to move toward the arch, each step a war against the overpowering dread that surrounded me. As I approached, the air thickened, carrying whispers that bombarded my senses. "Seek the truth," they murmured, curling around my mind like smoke. "He is in need of you." But what truth lingered here, hidden beneath layers of darkness, and what horrors would it unveil? The notion of treachery shaded my thoughts as anxiety slipped through my fingers, escaping quickly and leaving only the chilling embrace of shadows. Just before I crossed the threshold into the archway, tangible fingers snatched at my ankles, icy, wrenching me backward with an unyielding grip. I gasped as I fell again, thrashing, but the darkness cackled with malicious delight at my torment. "You cannot step beyond without knowing the cost," it taunted. The laughter echoed hauntingly, intensifying as it wrapped tighter around my mind. "Let go!" I screamed, desperation coursing through my veins as I fought to break free. And then suddenly, the grip slackened, drawing back just a moment before I felt a different pull calling beyond the threshold, a flicker of hope within the agony. "Come find me," Max's voice broke through, echoing with a clarity that shook the shadows momentarily. It stirred something deep within, igniting a fire of determination, pushing the shadows aside as I stumbled, nearly careening into the maw of the archway. With a breath that solidified into a shaky resolve, I plunged into the darkness. The world flipped anew, and once more, I was enveloped, the pulse of the shadows engulfing me as the air shifted, thickening with despair. The other side was disorienting, the landscape morphed with sickening fluidity. I could barely breathe as the essence of terror invaded every crevice of my soul. I found myself at the edge of a vast, ghastly pit, liquid shadows swirling like a tempest. At its center, a porcelain figure reflected back a lifeless copy of myself, smiling longingly with hollow eyes that seemed aspirant of retribution. Another scream pierced through, this time widened with anguish, a screech tearing through the veil of familiarity. Please help. Panic surged anew at the realization. It drew from the pit like an open wound screaming for salvation. I peered deeper into the expanse, and the echoes morphed. I recognized that voice, Max. Each syllable sent tremors through my body. I pulled back instinctively, but it was too late. A sudden, sharp pain erupted in my chest. An unseen force plunged deep, burrowing into my heart, anchoring me to the ground like a parasite siphoning my essence. Before I could react, everything spun around me, the whispering shadows engulfing me, matching the rhythm of my heartbeat. You foolishly gave him what you had, now he will reclaim all that is yours. I couldn't see, all I felt was an overwhelming sense of drowning, each breath drawing fear deeper within me. The voice coalesced into a monstrous form, a silhouette of suffocating familiarity that morphed in the mist. Max's shadowed reflection twisted and bent, a grotesque fusion of my brother and the realm's malice. You should have saved yourself, it hissed, teeth sharp, eyes glistening with malevolence. Now you must choose him or the rest of your soul. I trembled, every fiber of my being now anchored in the suffocating tendrils latched onto my heart. The duality of love and loss hovered perilously close, but the choice demanded was impossible. Max! I screamed, torn between the love for my brother and the horror of his transformation. But as the darkness intensified, a new realization crashed over me. Abyss was hungering, searching, festering with something beyond even my worst fears. My love would mean his transformation, nothing would save us. And then, from within the writhing shadows, an unimaginable shadow burgeoned, a figure pulling itself free of the torment. Max, or something like him, tearing through the very fabric of the void itself, the remnants of his brotherly love shielding a brutality that would turn him against me. Please find me. He called out again, his voice cracking against the weight of the shadows, but what awaited was a truth beyond comprehension, a sacrifice neither of us could afford. And the shadows howled in anticipation as the final decision loomed, ready to shatter our bond, the price of love becoming a chasm of horror between us. Yet within that climactic moment, terror buzzed with agony, as endless whispers declared, your choice is imminent, and vengeance is at hand. The last echo of familiarity twisted into a demonic laughter, imprisoning my heart, shattering any remnants of innocence. What do I reach for, seeking my brother or preserving my very own soul? The answer fluttered drastically into obscurity, as the hands of fate began to mercilessly tighten once more. The shadows danced more violently now, a tempest of darkness spiraling around me as Max's form edged closer, his features contorting into a grotesque marionette of despair. A dreadful familiarity clung to him, like an unwelcome scent that crawled under my skin. My heart pounded wildly as I fought the overwhelming urge to run. Something deep inside warned me that fleeing would be futile, a diversion only the shadows desired. Help me, his voice pleaded, trembling with anguish that splintered my resolve. The tension between us pulsed like a heartbeat, weaving through the air, but every inch I strained toward him felt like stepping deeper into a snare. Max, please. I gasped, every ounce of my being suspended between the ties of love and the grotesque reality unveiling before me. What happened to you? Suddenly, a low rumble filled the darkness, rippling through the pit and shaking the very ground beneath my feet. The porcelain figure that mirrored my own self cracked, lined spiderwebbing across its surface, revealing an emptiness that echoed my fears. It seemed to mock me, a vestige of my former life, my memories twisted into blame. I felt the cold grip of dread tighten around my heart as fresh whispers filled the void, some familiar, but all sinister and laced with laughter. You wish to save him, but it is your soul he covets. As the darkness shifted in a frenzy, the echoes intensified, morphing into a cacophony of voices. He chooses you. He chooses all. They shouted, and I screamed, drowning in the realization that this was not a rescue, it was a bait, an insidious trap set by the shadows to draw me into their web. Don't listen to them. Max's shadowed figure roared, the sound jagged and sharp like breaking glass. I need you. Still his voice fractured, and for a fleeting second, a glimmer of his old self surged forth, enough to kindle my hopes. But it was swallowed again by the murk, the tantalizing spark flickered, replaced by a gnawing hunger as the shadows roared. You will not save him without sacrificing your light. They thundered, each syllable thick with corruption. I cried. I refused to accept this. With all my strength, I lunged toward Max, only to have the shadows wrench me back, screaming in their vicious triumph. You cannot touch him. He belongs to us now. I felt the tendrils wrap around my limbs, thick and suffocating, binding me tighter. Panic sliced through me as voices from the pit roared like a legion of wild animals, each taunt hammering against my skull, urging me to surrender, but then the cries of my love for him sparked anew, filling every corner of the abyss. I will not abandon you. I shouted into the swirling gloom, desperation fueling my determination. You are my brother, I will find a way to save you. As I fought against the dark embrace, light began to fracture through the veil, rays of white piercing the shadows. They screamed in agony, hissing curses that echoed with sincere malice. It felt like sheer madness, but somehow, the flickering light grew more substantial, feeding on my bravery, illuminating the horrid truth smeared across the ground. What have they done to you? I whimpered as I could finally see Max's face clearly, his eyes wild, as if caught between worlds. No! Don't let them in! He shouted, suddenly alert, faces from the abyss flickering behind him, shadows twisted with intent. They'll take you, you must run, but it was too late. The air thickened with dread, and something dark and fetid slithered close. From the depths of the pit emerged a new horror, a mass of pulsing shadows spiraling upward, a gruesome amalgamation of lost souls, each one gnarled and pleading, reaching with skeletal hands as though seeking me, demanding to drag me down with them. With a helpless gasp, I recoiled, stumbling back as the apparition writhed and crackled, a skinless figure forming from the shadows, a visage both grotesque and hauntingly familiar. The ghastly thing floated toward me, its hollowed eyes locked on mine, dripping with dark ichor. It's your time, it whispered, words laced with despair. You are the keeper of his fate now, get away from me. I screamed as I twisted violently, attempting to break free from the pull of the shadows. The figure cackled, and its laughter unfurled like a malevolent wind, filling me with dread, despair washing through my veins like poison. Your sacrifice is predetermined, it rasped, stretching skeletal fingers toward my heart, a deranged smile curling across its lips. In a moment of blind terror, I summoned the fire within me, pushing back against the shadows, but the icy embrace of fear gripped my resolve. I won't let you take me. Yet before I could conjure another thought, the grotesque visage loomed closer, a nightmarish reflection of what awaited me. Open wounds and blackened expressions flared behind the gruesome entity. Find him, and you shall become one with our suffering. And then, as if to punctuate my darkest dread, I caught sight of something shifting behind Max, another figure, a shadowy doppelganger weaving between the darkness, tugging at the tendrils gripping him closer to the pit. Wait! Max! I screamed, my heart hammering, knowing that whatever it was, it offered no salvation, but it was too late. The shadows surged, and as they yanked at my brother, I felt a profound chasm gape open within me, an absolution of the bond we shared. The final moments stretched interminably, his face a mask of anguish as the final choice embodied in haunting clarity, demanding I forsake my very soul or watch him drown. No! I shrieked as the darkness enveloped him, constricting like a serpent, and in that breathtaking moment, I realized the cost of love, a cost that transcended dimensions, binding our fates in an unfathomable horror. And then, with a burst of sinister laughter and wrenching cries, darkness swirled in an onslaught, enveloping my brother entirely, shadows erasing him from sight, and the last thing I heard before it consumed me was the chilling echo of my own voice, drowned in despair. Max, I will find you. The finality sunk in as I was plunged into endless night, a spinning void behind my eyes, and the abyss's laughter mocked my heart, leaving me on the precipice of reality with shadows dancing behind my closed eyelids. But as silence fell, I felt a soft, cold breath against my ear, a voice whispering, "Welcome to our family." And suddenly, I knew I was not alone. The darkness throbbed as I floated in it, suspended between despair and fear. I struggled to remember the contours of light, memories of laughter, warmth, and the smell of fresh grass splintered like fragile glass, dimming with each passing moment. An echo of my own heartbeat drummed in the silence, punctuated by whispers that clawed at the edges of my consciousness. "Family is forever," they hissed, a sibilant chorus that lapped at my mind like waves of chilling water. "You belong to us." The words curled around me. I fought against the entanglement of shadows tightening their grip. I could still feel Max, the remnants of his essence dwindling like embers in a dying fire. The memories flared briefly, our childhood games, the smell of pizza nights, the trust woven in our shared experiences. Yet, with each flicker of recognition came a gut-wrenching realization: the truth behind his visit, the darkness that lurked beneath, grasses stained with stark betrayal. "Max," I whispered hopelessly into the void, searching for a tether, a connection, anything that might pull me back from this abyssal plunge. The laughter grew, resonating like a sinister lullaby, promising comfort while enshrouding me deeper in horror. "We'll always be together," it droned, and I felt something shift beside me, a presence brushing against my skin like ice. "Who?" The words stumbled from my lips, a primal instinct boiling in my throat. "You have forgotten?" The voice was soft yet filled with malice. A figure began to emerge from the darkness, fluid and flowing like the night itself. Slowly, it formed into a shadowy, haunting reflection of myself, face blurred yet tantalizingly familiar. "You will remember we've always been one." Terror surged anew before my tormentor could fully materialize, a reminder of the bond one shared with Max and the shadows entwined with our fates. Would this be my fate, to fade into this grotesque reflection, another wretched sadness trapped in the web of darkness? I fought the instinct to flee, my heart pounding. No! I will not succumb. At that moment, the fabric of the void trembled, reverberating with a shriek of laughter that echoed endlessly. The shadow of my other self tilted its head, studying me with hollow eyes filled with an unsettling wisdom. "Sacrifice is the price of love, sweet sister. Did you not learn that when you gave him your kidney?" An icy wave of recollection crashed against me, those terrible weeks in the hospital, his desperate need. The doctor's solemn words. As if my sacrifice had drawn a dark line between us, marking me as a vessel for something greater, or perhaps more sinister. I had given him my very life, yet he had returned with a darkness that now threatened to consume us both. The shadow surged forward, stretching its skeletal fingers through the murky void until they grazed my cheek, sending a shiver rippling through me. "Embrace what you have become," it beckoned, its voice dripping with honeyed malice. "You are one of us now. The bond that ties our souls tightens with every breath." No. I gasped, recoiling from its touch. My heartbeat quickened, escalating into a frantic rhythm. I yanked myself away, searching frantically for a semblance of escape, yet the shadows pulsated around me, closing in like a hungry beast. In a frenzied moment, I felt a jolt deep within my core, a flicker of rage igniting instead of the unfurling despair. "You lie!" I spat. Max fought. He would never want this. My voice rose, powerful against the backdrop of oppressive darkness, rekindling the ember of determination within me. The laughter dulled for a moment, the figure flinched, a crack in its confidence. Its form shuddered, and I took it as a chance. I pushed forward, summoning every ounce of my strength. "If I am your keeper, then I will break this chain. You will not take him from me, not without a fight." As if the declaration clawed at the tendrils anchoring me, light erupted from within, a vicious beam of purity battling against shadows swirling in a frenzy. An incandescent fire ignited, shocking the space around me, illuminating my other self. Its features warped into something horrifying, eyes aflame with malevolence as the cacophony of laughter replaced by furious screams ensued. "No!" it howled, writhing against the onslaught. "You cannot defy fate," but it was too late. The light cascaded outward, lighting the darkness around me, but in its wake came the faint outline of the abyss. A silhouette emerged, a specter caught in the light's grasp, and as the shadow shrieked, I recognized Max's face once more, glistening with tears of despair yet twisted in an agonizing conflict. "Help me!" he cried, and suddenly the air shifted with an oppressive weight, plunging violently back into the void. The exhilaration of light was ripped from me like a severed cord, the darkness retaliating with grim severity, spiraling in a maelstrom of rage. "Max!" I shouted again, desperately reaching for his fading form, fighting against the surging shadows dragging me away. But in that moment, as our fingers though separated by an unseen barrier almost grasped, I saw a spark of recognition spiral within those haunted eyes, a glimpse of understanding. "You must remember who you are." Find his voice echoed in torment before he was swallowed entirely, engulfed by an impenetrable darkness that a gaping void opened before me, and as my heart wrenched in horror and despair, the shadows swelled menacingly, and I felt something else tugging at me from the very depths of my soul. "Do not choose the light," they whispered sweetly, their voices laced with a terrifying inflection. "For the screams of your brother are already ours." And as the ground beneath me fissured, I braced myself for what was to come, my vision blurring while a cacophony of grief surged around me, threatening to consume all that I was. Then, as the walls crumbled and shadows enveloped me entirely, darkness flooded my mind, but it carried a singular echo, the unshakable truth that I had made my choice. And in those fleeting moments, I glimpsed the depths of the darkness before it swallowed me whole, and terror screamed through the depths of my being. I was not just fighting to save him. I was battling for my very soul. But in the oppressive silence that followed, one chilling question lingered above all else: what had I truly given away? And from the depths, the shadows whispered back, haunting and unyielding, "You'll find out soon enough." The darkness roared, a living entity that writhed and pulsed around me, squeezing the breath from my lungs. I felt weightless, but the suffocating dread clawed at my insides, making every heartbeat feel like a betrayal. As I was pulled deeper into the endless void, the laughter faded, replaced by the haunting echoes of Max's voice. "Find me," he had said. His distress twisted in my gut, and I clung to that singular thread of desperation. "Max!" I cried, my voice trembling as it fought to rise above the dark. "Where are you?" The shadows around me thickened, obscuring any path, any semblance of direction. The sensation of water enveloped me, cold and dark, as if I were submerged in something alive. I struggled against the invisible current, desperate to stay afloat. The echoes of laughter returned now, mocking, choked with sinister joy. "He is lost, sweet sister." The shadows whispered, each syllable dripping with cruel delight. "Lost, just like you." Panic clawed at me, and I twisted my body, searching for anything to latch onto, to break free of this malignant current. But the shadows shifted, constructing walls that encircled me tighter, each touch colder and more suffocating than the last. "You cannot escape your fate," they taunted, navigating through my memories. Suddenly, a burst of clarity sliced through the fog. I remembered our house, the warmth of my mother's voice drifting from the kitchen, the laughter of a summer evening cascading through the open windows. I focused on that moment, willing it to anchor me. As if sensing my resolve, the shadows recoiled, shivering around me, but they quickly retaliated. "You forget so easily," they hissed, the darkness thickening once more. "That warmth? It will betray you in the end." Just like he did. A surge of resentment flared in my chest. My memories twisted, tainted with suspicion. "No, that's not true," I yelled, but doubt crept into my heart, gnawing at my certainty. Had he returned changed? Was that why he was drawn to the darkness? Had my sacrifice turned him sinister, subverting the bond that was supposed to bind us? "Close your eyes, sister," the shadows cooed, "and remember the face of betrayal." That I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing to drown out the whispers. Instead, they grew louder, morphing into a cacophony of screams, piercing wails intertwining with Max's, drowning my spirit in turmoil. "You betrayed me." They echoed endlessly, a refrain ripping through my sanity. My mother's voice joined the fray, weaving memories of her unconditional love with layers of anger and abandonment. "Why, sister? Why would you sacrifice for someone so unworthy?" The weight of my choices bore down on me, the pain throbbed like a wound reopened. "Max, no!" I gasped, needling shame. Desperation ignited anew. This was a war of words, shadows battling against flesh and spirit, twisting my love into something unrecognizable. In striving to save him, had I neglected the truth of myself? Once again, I envisioned Max's face, the warmth of his smile, the shared secrets, the bond that had blossomed through pain and laughter. And just when I thought I could conquer the dread, the essence of the shadows coalesced into a tableau of all my worst fears. Visions of Max morphed into grotesquely twisted forms, eyes devoid of love and filled with malice, laughter that had turned to grinding teeth. "Come closer and see what you've lost, sister," they purred, extending billowing tendrils of darkness toward me, inviting me into their monstrous embrace. No. I screamed as images of shadows feasting on my memories swirled around me, feeding off my love, spinning them into grotesque mockeries. "You cannot have him. I will fight." With each cry, I felt a sliver of resistance break off, bleeding into the void, and as that flicker surged inside me, the shadows shrieked, thrashing in rebellion. The air crackled, shimmering as I concentrated my will. "I will not allow you to manipulate my love into hate." As the words escaped my mouth, the ground quaked beneath me, the darkness screeched, and for a fleeting moment, a fissure opened. I glimpsed movement, a fleeting silhouette within the cauldron of shadows, a spark of life fighting to emerge. "Help me, sister." The voice was faint, almost swallowed whole, yet unmistakably familiar. "Max!" I shrieked, clawing toward it, my heart racing against despair. But as I lunged forward, the shadows screamed, their cries now mixed with sounds that snapped at the fringes of my mind, piercing through my sanity. Whispers of betrayal, pain, and regret echoed endlessly, drowning out my pleas. "Let him go. You are meant to join us." With a mighty heave, I pushed against the encompassing blackness, gathering my strength once again, but as I did, the world began to warp, everything flaring brightly before fading into a hushed murmur. I felt my grip slipping, my essence unspooling as fear clawed at my throat. "Embrace us." The shadows howled, their voices converging, thrumming with anticipation. "No!" I cried, determined to fight until my last breath. "You will not take him from me." But in that moment, the shimmering light resumed pulling me in, dragging me deeper into the confusion, the barrier between us thinning as the shadows writhed in rage. Then, one final scream echoed through the void, reverberating with a vicious ferocity, "You understand nothing," and as the darkness closed in around me, crushing my last vestige of resolve, I realized the unthinkable truth of my brother's horrifying secret. I had not just lost him to the shadows, I was a piece of that darkness, a vessel crafted from the very fabric of despair that threatened to consume us all. And as they pressed against my mind like ice, I felt the press of another presence lurking deeper still, waiting for the moment to emerge. And then, I understood the true horror lay not in saving him, but in discovering who I was destined to become. The darkness twisted around me like a living thing, a grotesque mimicry of what I had once cherished. I was no longer just a sister trying to save her brother, I was ensnared in a terrifying web of shadows that threatened to envelop everything I was. I reached out frantically, desperate to seize the fleeting sensation of Max's essence, but each touch was met with the cold embrace of despair, robbing me of courage and pushing me deeper into the void. "Remember." The shadows screamed, their voices a cacophony of heartbreak and rage, slithering into my mind like poison. "You are nothing without him. He is the darkness that lives within you." Instinctively, I clawed at the air, breathing in desperation, searching fiercely for the warmth of his spirit within the monstrous echoes surrounding me. "Max! Fight it!" I shouted, my voice at once both a plea and a prayer. But the oppressive weight of the shadows crushed my shout into a whisper, shrouding it in disdain, and then, suddenly, amidst the chaos, I felt a flicker of light, a heartbeat pulsing steadily against the black fabric of the void. "Sister," a familiar voice delicately pierced through the darkness. It was Max, but it sounded different, tainted yet longing, as if he could still remember moments of warmth layered beneath the malevolence that cloaked him. "Please, find me. They're coming." A rush of something ethereal surged at the mention of those words, something so minuscule yet so profound that I couldn't ignore it. "Max! I called desperately once more, scrambling towards the flickering pulse that beckoned me forward. The shadows shifted with rage, undulating like a venomous snake but retreating from the light that clung to the edges of my consciousness, but I was aware, painfully aware of the truth entwined with his presence. What I had given, what I had sacrificed, it echoed louder than all the whispers swirling around me. I had shared not only my kidney, but my very essence. I had stitched together his fate with every part of me, and now it tormented us both. Listen to me, Max's voice grew stronger, the warmth of it igniting something deep within. There's a way through together, we can. The shadows surged, and darkness flooded back with an agonizing swell, overwhelming the flicker of light. You cannot listen to him. He is a vessel of despair. They cried, their shrieks a howl of protest, wrenching the air with their ominous intent. You gave him what was precious, a thread woven through the horrors we now share. I could feel despair, anger, hope, and agony entwined as the powerful emotions churned, threatening to tear me apart at the seams. Be still, I whispered to myself as I took a step toward Max's voice, resisting the clawing shadows. I will never abandon you. With each step I took, ragged breaths propelled me forward, the shadows hesitated, warily shifting away from my resolve. I grasped the light pulsating through the void, letting it nestle against the truth I was clinging to. Max wasn't lost, he was transformed, trapped in layers of darkness of which I knew nothing yet. Please, sister, he pleaded, desperation lacing his words. We don't have much time. I need you to remember who you are. See beyond the veil of shadows. Severus is not what binds us together, it's love, loyalty, and sacrifice. A shudder rippled through the ground beneath me at the echo of that name, Severus. Images flashed before my eyes, lost souls, their hollow faces reflecting bitter regrets. Who is he? I gasped, desperate for clarity, but a dervish of shadows spun around me, threatening to pull me back into their embrace. Severus is the one who creates suffering. He feasts on the bonds we share, turning them against us as he gobbles up hope and light. But listen to my voice, came Max's soothing tones, urging my spirit. You must choose before it's too late. As if rebelling against the inky void, a surge of warmth ignited in my chest, setting my heart ablaze with long-dormant resolve, pushing back against the fear. A surge of memories flashed before me, childhood, laughter echoed in sunlit spaces, a deep trust forged in the battles we faced together. The beauty of those moments contrasted sharply against the blight surrounding us. With newfound clarity, I reached out with intention, longing for a bridge to my brother awaiting me on the other side. I'm here, Max. I cried, and light began to swell in earnest, forming delicate tendrils that splintered into vibrant colors, weaving around the darkness like golden thread, stitching us back together. The shadows screeched, recoiling in agony as the warmth poured from mirrors, pathetic. The shadows spat, their voices dripping venom as their forms twisted in a frenzied attempt to reclaim their power. You think this love can save you? You'll only become one of us. The fury of their resistance fueled my determination. No. I bellowed, fighting back fiercely, entwining memories forged from love, not fear, casting my light into the depths of the darkness. We choose a different path. The radiant glow intensified, illuminating the void as I visualized Max, his soul coiling around mine, water in the desert, fighting against the ever-dominating angst of the shadows. I will not succumb to this darkness. As if ignited by my resolve, the light erupted into a blinding cascade, illuminating everything that lay dormant. I saw forms wretched with despair begin to shift, the lost souls released their agonized cry, spirit and essence tearing free from hideous tendrils, leaving behind gnarled shadows. Brother! I cried, reaching my hand toward the flickering light where Max stood, his eyes wide and bright, desperately pulling me closer. Find me. I am here. He stretched his hand toward me, his form shimmering between shadows and light, desperate to bridge the divide, and then, as if the very fabric of the abyss quivered in recognition of our bond, a gust of wind pulled around us. Shadows screeched back, then took a perverse delight in our moment of weakness. No. I cried, casting every ounce of my courage into that ethereal light to push through. The warmth surged forth as if rooted in the core of my being, sweeping away the shadows that clung to my past. Help me. Max's voice echoed like an unbreakable bond, more than just words. It was an unyielding demand of love, a promise cloaked in agony. As the last fragments of darkness crumbled away in the shimmer of brilliance, I leaped forward, grasping onto Max's outstretched hand. With that touch, the world exploded into blinding light, sweeping over us like a cleansing wave. Together, we shouted, the power resonating through the depths as we entwined our remaining pieces, transforming despair into something fierce, something transcendent. And then it happened. With a final explosion of light and shadow, the void peeled away, revealing a space beyond comprehension, a sanctuary forged from love, binding us again, sheltering us from despair. And where shadows once traced our every step, sunlight now kissed our skins, radiating warmth as laughter echoed around us. Yet, as I looked into Max's eyes, a lingering chill ran down my spine. A haunting reflection danced within, a shadow flickering just below Max. But as quickly as I posed the question, his smile faltered, a shadow crossing his features, something foreign still lurking just beneath the surface. The warmth of his spirit flickered alongside an aftertaste of despair. No, I can't let it win, I thought desperately, battling the remnants of fear blotting out every radiant second we shared. Not again. And as understanding set in, we remained tethered, his existence font of both hope and terror. Shadows were ever lingering, lurking just beyond the light, severing ties with darkness hadn't meant escaping it. The battle was not over, it lingered, dancing at the corners of our shared existence, forever entwining us, forever watchful. The shadows had merely retreated, waiting for the right moment to rise again. I will protect you, I whispered, squeezing his hand tightly, ready to fight once more. Yet, as we stood amidst the cracking light, I could feel their cold, bated breath brushing against the edge of my sanity, the lingering truth we both would have to face. No matter how bright the light might shine, the darkness would always be lurking, crouching beneath the surface, biding its time. And then, in the distance, I heard the chime of familiar laughter, deep and mocking, an echo that chilled my marrow, woven in anguish yet so achingly familiar. It echoed loudly, rumbling through the very air around us, whispering, "Your sacrifices will only feed me forever." With my heart in my throat, the horrifying realization settled within my bones. True terror was not just the darkness we fought, but the very love that bound us together, giving birth to an undeniable truth: the shadows were never far from home, and the war within us had only just begun.